this video game like life that we live in. If you haven't noticed, that life is sort of like a video game, right? You have this character. I'm this character, like I'm this dude. We don't know who the player is, right? We've never seen the person holding the controller. We assume that's like God or the universe or something. And so I have this character. I start off as a baby. I don't have any skills yet. I actually have to be taken care of by other characters in the game. So it's kind of like one of those MMORPGs. And I develop my skills throughout this game. I have certain limitations. I have certain stats, and my stats can be increased in certain areas. Like I can grow up and I can increase my stats in basketball, or I can become really good at math, or I can be a really good social person, or whatever, right? So there's just infinite stats, just tons of different activities you can partake in, and you can increase your stats in those areas. And there's some obvious limitations too, like some of us have what we call disabilities inside the game, but these are like sort of like handicaps. These make the game more difficult. Like some people are blind. I saw a blind person today, and I thought about like what it would be like to play this game blind, to not actually be able to see any of the content of the game. What it might be to play the game deaf, or to not have arms, to maybe have arms and then lose them, like if your character decides to go to war and your arms or your legs get blown off. So we're in this video game, and we don't really know even what type of video game it is. As far as we know, it seems to be some sort of survival game. It's not obvious that in this game that we should be killing each other or that we shouldn't. You know, in this game, another interesting feature is that like we love each other in this game too. We can get into romantic relationships. We meet people. And these mechanics exist in the game. So it's not just like, you know, you meet a person and it's just like this sort of computer-esque interface with this other person. Like you truly believe that when you met your high school sweetheart, for example, or when you dated somebody, or when you see your crush, you actually feel things that feel true to you. So there's a sort of like a true feel to it. The game is reality. So one of my claims in this video is going to be that life is the reality game. It is the game in which everything is real, or everything at the very least is perceived as real by the character that you play. And for me, being basically a philosopher, you know, having my experiences in spirituality, you guys know I have a secret in the video. And my secret is not to figure out what type of game life is. I've been thinking about that a lot. I've been thinking a lot about like what type of game it is. And I'm realizing that it's sort of like a choose your own adventure type of thing. Which brings me to something interesting about this game, and that is rules. When we come into this game called life, we're quickly indoctrinated into like how other people are playing. So basically within the game of life, there's a mini game called society. And most of us are playing the mini game called society because if we play the society game, we get access to different things. Like we get access to like healthcare and jobs so we can make money. And like we have an education system within society and we can interact with that, which allows us to learn more complex skills like becoming a doctor in the game and becoming a psychologist or becoming an aerospace engineer. But when you look at the nested in game of society, we have a lot of rules that operate inside of this mini game. And of course, there has to be rules in this game in order for it to stay that game. If there weren't no rules, then it wouldn't be a society. The trick, though, is that once you are indoctrinated into the society game, you don't realize that the rules only exist within that system. And that's not really obvious, and it's not really even safe to think otherwise, because you might think like, okay, for example, within the society game, you're not supposed to kill other people. You're not supposed to steal from other people. And that seems like it's a universal thing where it's like, oh, yeah, of course, you're not, yeah, that's just like an obvious, basic thing about life. And actually, it's not obvious and it's not basic. In fact, a lot of people that come into this game of life take it so seriously because it feels so real, right? You feel real watching me on the video. You don't think that you're living an imaginary life. You don't think this is a game. 50% of my life, at least, I don't think it's a game. And I've had multiple spiritual awakenings. And my point being that most people on earth don't think they're playing a game. They think it's real. And so in their experience of life, which isn't a game to them, they may actually think that in order to survive, which is going to be their core focus, they find that they may need to kill people. And we see that, right? We see it all the time. Somebody gets killed every single day. People get mugged every single day. So what I'm pointing at here is just that there's rules that seem obvious that we think are applied to us universally, but actually they're not. And I'm going to take you into some dangerous territory because the truth is that you can actually play this game however you want. And this does mean that you can do very bad things. And do not confuse this for me telling you to go do bad things. What I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you sort of think about like the game of life and how you've been playing it and try to really just ask yourself why you've been playing by all the rules. I'm not saying that you don't need to go kill people, but there's a lot of rules that you probably play by that you don't need to be playing by, that you thought were inherent, that you thought that you had to follow these rules. Which ultimately means, since the rules are nested within the mini game of society, you could ask yourself if you want to play the society game. Many people right here on YouTube, in their playthrough of this game called life, they've decided to stop playing the society game. Now, there are also different societies. There's like American society. I'm in the United States. And so like a lot of people go and they do digital nomadism. They're expats, right? They go move to another country. And then those countries have their own society set up. They're still a part of like global society, but then their mini game of life changes a little bit based on a different society they play in. The rules change slightly. And they're all kind of similar, but they changed ever so slightly. So one of the things that I think about a lot in my playthrough is, you know what? I don't think I want to play the American society game as much anymore. I've given the United States and America the benefit of the doubt. And I've recently been becoming conscious of like, oh, actually, I just kind of started here, but that doesn't necessarily mean that this is where I should be or that this is the best game that my character can play. See, one of the things that's important, it's super important in life, aka the video game, is that you find an environment where your character can level up in a way you want to. See, one of the things that happens when you play this game is you fall for the idea that it's super serious and that the goal of the game is to survive, that the goal of the game is you come in, you're supposed to make a lot of money, and that you're supposed to have kids, have a job, get a career, retire. But that is only true because that's what people do inside the society game. That's not something that you necessarily should do. This is why it seems like we don't have that many highly original people, is because most of us all do the same stuff. And most of us think that like there's a few talented people out there, like there's people that can play really good basketball, good singers, good dancers, etc. Then you might feel like you don't have any talent. But that's because within the society game, only certain things are recognized as talents. There are entire domains of things that you are good at that you actually don't even consider to be a skill or to be a talent because the rest of the world, the rest of society doesn't acknowledge that talent. It doesn't pay for that talent. Nobody pays to see that talent. And so it gets categorized lower by you because you're drawn into the idea that your talents must fit within the greater landscape of society because you desire, or maybe you don't, but it seems like you desire to play the society game. Otherwise, why would you be playing it? Perhaps listening to this video will give you a different idea about how you want to approach how you want to live life. See, it's ironic that when we talk about like having a aim in life and having a purpose, but for most people, for 99% of people, it doesn't even occur to them that they could be playing an entirely different game altogether. Why should all of your goals exist within the mind space of what you can do for your immediate society when you could have goals for the game that go even beyond that? And the reason I'm not giving examples is because you have a unique mind. One of the problems that I feel like people have right now is that we're waiting on other people to give us good ideas, to give us permission, but you don't need permission. And one of the themes, you guys know I do a lot of deep contemplation work. One of the themes that I'm bumping into a lot is somewhere along the way I've learned to not trust my own intuition and my own discoveries while I'm in this game. Let me see if I can think of an example. So I recently discovered that you actually don't need permission to do a lot of things. And that a lot of times, in order to have a good life, you actually do have to push the boundaries quite a lot. And that is something that I was ignoring. I was looking at things like having thoughts like that about permission. And I would think like, oh, I can't be thinking that, right? Because society doesn't really want you to think that way. Society doesn't want you to think about pushing the boundaries, changing the rules, breaking any rules. And I'm going to explain why. And the reason why is because deep subconsciously in the collective subconscious, in the collective subconscious, society needs you to obey the rules because you might accidentally unravel society. What happens if you decide to push the boundaries and all of a sudden everybody gets universal basic income? Well, let's say you decided you wanted to like pursue that goal for universal basic income to exist within the society game because you decided to push the boundaries and not ask permission. Let's say you succeeded. Well, this has significant consequences, right? And any move you make has significant consequences. But now things are different within the United States. Now people's wealth means different things. Now maybe prices are going to go up because people, companies are going to think like, oh, everybody's got money. So, now we're going to raise prices, right? So every move you make within the society game is going to change the society game. So every mini game nested within life, which is the larger game, has its own implicit survival. So the game itself is trying to survive. It seems like unconscious and inanimate objects do not attempt to survive, but they do. And so the society, which is the mini game, that thing itself tries to survive, even though it doesn't have like its own independent brain. It operates off of our brains. So for example, if 100,000 people decided, let's pick more. Let's say 10 million people in the United States decided that tomorrow we're all going to go outside butt ass naked. That is not something that the rest of the society wants to happen. That would mess up a lot of key features in the game. One of the features in the game, for example, let's look at one of the consequences of that, and you'll see what I mean. So let's say we all decided, or not all, but 10 million of us decided to go get butt naked in the street. What this also means then is like, clothing companies might look at that and go, well, what if people just start to not wear clothes anymore? What if everybody just becomes comfortable being naked and then we can't sell our clothes anymore? And now the business owners of clothing companies, maybe you have a clothing company, maybe you're a small business. What happens when you can't sell your clothing anymore because people just want to be naked? Notice how that one move then affects you now. So every move, every piece that's moved within the games affect every other piece. So what are some of the other games that are nested in here? So we know society's one game. Relationships are a game. That's like another mini game. We think that love, romantic love, is some inherent principle in the universe that, like, especially in the United States, we think like, oh, we have to go and be in relationships. We have to date. We have to go in cold approach. We have to look smacks. We have to better ourselves. We have to increase our confidence. We have to work on boundaries. We have to do all these things that are adjacent to romantic love. But that's only true if you trust that that game is worth playing based off of what society told you. And most of us drink that Kool-Aid. Most of us don't just look at dating and relationships as a game. We literally look at it as like, man, if I don't find a girlfriend, if I don't find a boyfriend, my life is going to suck. Like, that's going to mean that I really failed at this thing. And perhaps you've been racking your mind about relationships for a long time. It doesn't seem like the education system is a mini game, but it is. There's no reason that humans need to be intelligent except to keep society together. Notice how both these other two mini games, relationships and education, are nested within society as a mini game, as their own minier games to support the bigger mini game outside of them, which supports the biggest mini game of life. So, you know, there's you can think about all sorts of the mini games that we have nested within life. These are just categories that most human beings collectively came up with. There are categories that could exist that don't, because nobody's thought about them, or you probably have thought about ways to live your life, and you probably don't feel comfortable going to go live them. And it's not just that you don't feel comfortable, it's also that a lot of the resources that you need to do anything live or exist within the mini game of society. So notice that the currency of life, the currency that we prefer as human beings, is the goddamn money, is dollars. The problem with that, the limitation rather, I shouldn't call it a problem, the limitation of it is that if you want to change the system, you still need the resources from the system. A lot of people don't recognize this when we talk about overthrowing the government, when we talk about, defunding the police or any sort of big movement that we have. We forget that, like I said earlier, any piece that you move threatens that system because that system itself is trying to stay alive. The system may be unconscious, but every structure in the universe resists change. Even if it resists only a little bit, it resists change. You resist change, right? When you try to set new habits, your brain resists change. You try to, lose weight. You go 3-4 days, you're eating healthy, and then all of a sudden you binge. A school, maybe the school district is voting on changing some stuff for students. And ultimately, the new programs that would have helped some students get outvoted because some old school people are scared to lose one or two other things that the original system provides. You should notice that this rigidity exists, that this resistance to change and this resistance to impermanence exists within all of the games. Now, I don't have any advice that I can think of for how you should play this game. And really what I want to do is I want to extend the open invitation to you to actually approach life and look at it as a game and how you can change this game to fit you, or how you can play a new game. And with that, I said I had a secret in this video. And up till now, I've been presenting life as a game. But actually, I want to provide another frame of how to look at life. And this one is truer than the video game frame of life. And this one you can't access without awakening, without enlightenment. The best way to become conscious of this next frame I'm going to introduce is for you to probably just use some psychedelics. Your magic mushrooms are going to be very helpful for understanding this one. is just too difficult because the way that the human mind is set up is it's not designed to see the frame I'm going to talk about next. It's actually designed to not see this other frame because this other frame is very like destabilizing. The video game frame gives you a lot of control. All of it assumes that even if you have a little bit of control within your mini game, you still at least have that little bit. This next frame, you don't have any. Not really. And so this next frame is to look at life not as a game, but as a movie. So if you have a Kensho, if you see the ox, of the 10 ox herding pictures of Buddhism, I think it is, of Zen Buddhism, basically that's just another way of saying enlightenment. If you have an enlightenment experience, which you can have, every human being has access to enlightenment. Enlightenment is what you are. That's you seeing directly what you are. That's you seeing through what life is, so that you can see, like, is it a game? Is it physics? Is it all this stuff? And it's actually crazier than a game. It's crazier than a physical world. It's crazier than a spirit world. It's crazier than anything you've ever imagined. And so this frame is to look at life as a movie. This one removes you as an actor and a participant in life, as a doer. Because what's true, what happens to be true at the ultimate level, is that there is no self, right? So the thing looking through your eyes, it's looking at me on a phone screen, that thing in there is not in there, that you're imagining that there's a you in there. That's an assumption that's being made. And so I don't want to get deep into that and explain that in this video. The point is that life is actually a movie at the highest levels. The movie that's happening is the present moment. So everything that your body does, all of your thoughts, all of your feelings, all of the events that have taken place, these are nothing but slices of highlight reels that your mind has glued together to make it seem like you have been existing over time. That's what time is. Time is you imagining that time is passing. That's what time is, by the way. Time is you imagining that time is passing now. But what's true is that you just have the present moment. The present moment is eternal. The present moment is infinite. And so, so you've sliced up all these highlight reels, and what happens is the mind, this is how powerful your mind is. Your mind is able to take these glued together highlight reels, and it's able to assemble the sense of self, that's you, and then it takes that sense of self and it splits the sense of self off from other things. That's why you feel separate from me. The mind does this multi-step, it does it instantaneously, by the way. It's not like loading like a computer. The mind knows how to do this. That's why you exist. You exist because it knows how to do this instantly. This is why nobody knows what life really is until they have their awakening, is because the mind is so quick at it that it doesn't allow you to see it. The movie is a movie about a you living life. So what's happening is a movie is happening that you are not in control of. And inside of this movie is the illusion or the trick that you are in control. And within that trick, you can play a video game. So life is really a video game nested inside of a movie. I was thinking about how to explain enlightenment and how to explain awakening to people who probably won't go and do it, right? Like I said, you can do it. It's your fundamental birthright to do so. You have access to your true nature, but a lot of people won't choose that, and you don't have to choose enlightenment. You don't have to choose to go find out what the game is, what the movie is, what life is. You don't have to look at that for yourself if you don't choose to do that. But it may be helpful to understand some of the mechanics. So I want to offer a frame to those people who just want to live from the principles and not from the direct experience. Crazy people like me want to see the direct experience. We want to be terrified by not existing and having enlightenment experiences and all of that. So I've already done that part. So for you, what you want to do is understand that the consequences are as follows. that inside the video game, that there are enormous consequences to the actions you choose, because the things you do, those pieces you move within the game, affect other pieces in the game. It affects the other people in the game. And so the consequences are, at this level, true. However, since the game itself is nested inside the movie does what it wants. And so the movie is really generating all the things that are taking place inside the game. It's generating the experience that a game is being played. And therefore, at the highest level, there are no consequences. Because the whole movie is just one movie, and one thing can't have consequences to itself because it has no opposite. It has nothing with which to react to. Only its components, only its inner components can react to things. It's sort of like your cells and stuff all interact with each other inside your body. But let's say only your body exists. Let's say your whole body was the universe. Well, you couldn't take your fist and then punch your face and say, oh, this was a consequence, because it would just be the universe punching the universe, if that makes sense. And let's say you beat yourself up. You're in the same example. You're the entire universe. You beat yourself up, and you turn into a puddle of blood and guts. Well, the puddle of blood and guts is still 100% of you. You just transform. You're in a different form now. You're not a meat suit. In that case, you would just be a puddle of blood and bones. Gruesome examples. I apologize for the nasty examples. But what you have is you have the video game nested within a movie. And inside the main video game are many other mini games. So the point is to create your own mini game within this game, which means in order to do this, you're going to have to be able to not take life too seriously. A lot of us have brains that were set up at a higher difficulty in the video game to take life more seriously. When we came into the game as babies, we were indoctrinated to believe that the game was super serious, and people did that by over-promoting survival, over-promoting salvation. A lot of us were brought into religious cultures, in religious households, where as soon as you were old enough to understand anything, you were told that Jesus created you, or that the biblical God created you, and that you were a sinner, and that you needed to repent, and that you needed to do all these different things in order to save your soul. So a whole backstory was painted for you before you even had a chance to just explore and markate life yourself, and just kind of name what was going on for yourself. And so you've been playing the game very seriously. Life does not work well if you take it too seriously. If you take the universe too seriously, it's going to give you very serious shit in return. What you need from life is you need this to be a very playful, fun, and free experience, especially if you got dealt a bad hand. I can't imagine having been dealt a worse hand and taking it seriously on top of that. The last thing you should be doing, I guess my ultimate message in this video, is at all costs, whatever you do, you must not take it too seriously. You should only take it seriously enough so that you can continue playing the game that you want to play. You know, losing an arm would be bad, but if you don't need arms to play the game the way you want to play it, then don't take it too seriously. If you need arms, then you want to make sure that you avoid things that could remove your arms. It sounds silly, but it's just like a video game. You know, do you need the fire sword to fight the water boss, the boss in the water dungeon? No, your sword's going to be useless there. But the question is, do you care about defeating the boss in the water dungeon? Is the water dungeon on your to-do list for this playthrough? And if the answer is no, then you don't need the fire sword. But if your goal in life is to fight the plant boss in the plant dungeon, then your fire sword makes sense to have. So then you're going to do what you can to make sure you have your fire sword. There will be things that happen that challenge your ability to do things. And it does not necessarily mean that you need to triumph and overcome things. That's one of the ways that the game tricks you into becoming too seriously. You can choose to triumph and overcome your problems. A lot of people find that to be very enjoyable. A lot of people find pain and suffering to be very enjoyable. Human beings in general find having a struggle, having a story to be very entertaining, to be very noble, and to be very exciting and fulfilling. That's why we love our movies. That's why we love our action movies. That's why we love our video games. That's why every time we make cinema and video games and art, it's always about the human struggle. There is appeal to the human struggle, but not to all humans. So my point is that you don't have to choose to triumph over things. You can simply choose to play a different game. If life trips you and you fall down the stairs, metaphorically, and it's like, oh, well, I guess I can't do that part of the game anymore. Sure, you could choose to triumph and get back up and climb up again, but that does not mean that that's what life is about. See, a lot of people think that life is about getting knocked down and getting back up. You're going to get back up anyway. You understand that? You're going to get back up, whether you get back up half beat to death or whether you get back up with a positive attitude, a negative attitude, a neutral attitude. Everybody gets back up. We all get back up. Not all of us go and play a different game. The trick was that we trick ourselves into thinking that, oh, we could only play that game, and I failed that game because I didn't get back up and triumph like this dude over here, this muscle dude who loves to get beat up, triumph, and get back up and play the game again. You are not playing the same game. That person that thinks that you need to be this triumphant person would not do that if they were you. That's an illusion. We always think that we would do different things as different people, but we don't assume that if we were different people, that we would have that very background. So the limited set of things that we would choose would be the same things they had to choose from. So if their brain had 3 ideas of what to do in a tragic situation and they chose something that sent them to jail, and then you switched places with them, well, you still have those same 3 things. Maybe you would have chose one of the other 2 things, but apparently as that person, the thing that they actually chose was the most logical thing to them at the time. And this brings me to my last point, which is within the game, if you're following my game framework, a lot of people choose to make the game enjoyable for other people. And society actually does a pretty good job at this because it does cultivate people with the framework and the attitude of empathy and love. And I'm talking about like unconditional love, not like loving your family and loving your cat and loving your girlfriend, like the easy stuff. I'm talking about like, you know, loving the smelly homeless people on your corner. I'm talking about loving the truck driver that drove over your cat. I'm talking about all the gruesome stuff too. But most importantly, society does encourage us to be kind to each other because we're all playing the game. And there's limitations to it because you don't want to die and you don't want your playthrough to end. And so it's tricky to a lot of times to figure out what to do with certain people. You have people, you know, like with the president and the government, we're finding out that a lot of people are pedophiles. We're finding out that a lot of people are trafficking children. There's people who feel the need to sell drugs to people because that's the mini game that they've decided to play. We're trying to figure out a way to accommodate everybody. And so society does produce people that are highly accommodating. And so what I want to point out here is that you don't need to do that either. It's very noble and honorable to say that you are a person that loves and you're an inclusive person. This is one of the illusions or delusions that come with society. Remember, society just wants to keep society from becoming disintegrated as a mini game. So of course it wants people to be kind and it wants people to be docile. The consequences of that is that you end up with a mediocre game. When you're not playing life as a playful, non-serious game that you want to play, when you're not doing that, it leads to depression. It leads to anxiety. Why do you think anxiety exists? Anxiety is only exists because you're playing the society game and people told you that it was worthwhile to play, that it meant a whole lot, and that you need to do it. And so you believed it, and now here you are depressed or anxious. Here you are watching a YouTube video instead of living your ideal life. And here I am making a YouTube video instead of being out there doing it myself. Notice how twisted and clever the game is at getting you to not play. The whole point of life is that it's a big trick. Obviously, it's a game inside of a movie. The whole thing is a trick. Okay? And so the point here is to acknowledge the trick. You should be moment to moment in your life, almost every second of every day, just saying, it's a trick. Every moment, every time you take a shit, every time you eat a sandwich, every time you walk your dog, every time you journal, every time you listen to music, every time you fall down the stairs, bad shit happens, good shit happens, neutral shit happens, funny shit happens, happy shit happens, sad shit happens. You're still in the trick. Life wants you. The difficulty of life is that it's always trying to get you to take it seriously. God's trick is that he wants you to take it seriously. Even especially when it gets really bad, it's important to remember that it's a joke. It's important to remember to laugh in God's face when bad things happen. When the worst possible thing happens, the best move you can make is to laugh in God's face. The worst move you can make is take it seriously. Some people, they go and pray when bad things happen. Some people, they go and meditate. They go on this whole arc in their life, this whole meaningful arc to get back up again. It's a trick. You can do it, but it doesn't mean that it didn't start off as a trick. It's trying to get you to take it seriously. It's you versus life. Life, you can imagine, if you imagine life is like your arch enemy, its goal is to make sure that by the time you die, that you took it seriously. Your goal is to, by the time you die, that it was a game. And this will change your experience of death as well. Because when at the moment of your death, you'll have your spiritual awakening. That's what death means in the game. And depending on how you chose to interface with life will also change how you interpret awakening to what the game was. It'll have a different signature on you. A lot of people that I've seen that have spiritual awakenings, like I'm gonna give you a contrast because I'm like a pretty serious person. I'm just now starting to really grasp the fact that it's a big game, and that it's a big trick. So a person like me, when I have, especially my first few spiritual awakenings, my first few enlightenment experiences, those, it was very terrifying. It was very terrifying. You feel humiliated. It's a very painful experience for me to have my awakening as I realize that it's a game. As I realize, and I face death and the fact that there's no self and all the stuff that people talk about with spiritual awakening. But then other people who don't take it as seriously, and I believe this is the key difference, those people go right into what they experience as infinite love. If you want to have the best spiritual awakening as possible, it's important that leading up to it, that you understand that life is a joke. Because if you go to death and you think life was serious, you're going to think that death is serious. If you thought that life was a game, when you die, it's going to still feel like a game. It's going to be like, oh, okay, what happens next? It's going to feel like a roller coaster to you. It's going to feel like a ride, like an exhilarating experience. So that's my message for this video. This has been What is Life? A video game or a movie? And I have been Brainwaves Brian. I'll see you guys in the next video.